We are live, week one. I got DFS Ghost with me here. Ghost, how we doing? It feels like Christmas morning. I'm pumped up.
I'm fired up, bro. This is unbelievable. Best Sunday of the year. How are you doing, man?
I hardly could sleep, so I drank a lot last night so I could sleep. Just too excited. We got a full slate of games today. The only one potentially in jeopardy is San Francisco, Arizona. I'm sure, as you all know, there's some weather issues there with the air quality and whatnot. I would assume we would know soon if they're not going to play. I don't think it's going to be like a baseball thing where it goes up to first pitch and they're like, all right, this one's delayed. But I don't like a whole lot in that game anyway. We'll go through it. So basically the point of this show for all the new people out there and all the people coming back from last year, that's awesome. We love to have you. It's a great time. We had a lot of great success on this show talking about some of our top plays, GPP cash. We'll go over everything like that game by game. It's not just going to be 5% owned guys. This is what could win you the Millionaire Maker or 50% Boston Scott chalk that you just need to eat in some places. We'll kind of give a mindset. I know Ghost is a very big FanDuel player. I prefer DraftKings, so that is a perfect little combo for everybody. Let's get to it. First game, Detroit in Chicago. The total is now dropped to 42.5 points. I got some thoughts on this game, but what do you see here, Ghost?
I'm all over the Chicago stack. I mean, you've been talking about it for a little bit over a week now. I mean, it was popping in the in your AETY model, and if you guys haven't had the chance to check that out, make sure you go and do that for you to win some large amounts of money today. But the Chicago stack is looking nice. I mean, Mitch Trubisky's 3-0 versus Matt Patricia's defense. Last year, he torched them for 6 touchdowns in 2 games, and we've been talking about how Allen Robinson and Anthony Miller can both expose Detroit's man coverage, and of course, their first round draft pick, Jeff Okudah, is also out, and Darius Slay is now playing for the Eagles. So I'm really liking the Chicago stack and running it back with Marvin Jones Jr. on the other side. Kenny Golladay is not likely to play in this game. We'll still be waiting for news up until lock, and we'll definitely have that for you all on the show. But running it back with Marvin Jones Jr. is definitely not a bad option.
Yeah, Jones is going to be super chalky, but I think for good reason. I think the last time he played without Kenny Golladay was a couple games in 2017. You go back and look at those. It's, obviously it's a long time ago, but relatively similar situation as we got today. It's still Stafford. It's still Marvin Jones on the outside. It was like 11 targets a game for Marvin Jones. So I think he's a must play in cash. He's going to be, 25% owned, especially in cash games. Just take it there. And in tournaments, you can get off him a little bit if you want. I still think he's a big body receiver. He can get up and high point the ball. A lot of red zone ability there. We always want that in DFS and both DraftKings and FanDuel, especially FanDuel. If you want to pivot away from that, I would go to Hawkinson. He'd be my only other target. I've heard some people talk about Danny Amendola. I just can't do it. I don't like these little try hard 5'6" slot guys that just don't seem to do it for me. If he gets in the end zone, whatever, but I don't see him getting 10 catches for 150 yards. That's a huge game for anybody. But yeah, I'm not in the Danny Amendola this week, but I do love this Bears offense. I think Trubisky is going to be somewhat under the radar. I thought this week he'd be 0% owned. Now it seems like every outlet out there is talking about him a little bit. Allen Robinson's got a 5.5 catch prop, pretty high there. I think Anthony Miller is 3.5. That is super low. So if you still see sportsbooks with that, it was a plus number yesterday. We wrote it up in the 80 model prop plays. Take that one. And Anthony Miller's receiving yard prop was like 39 yards. So too low, especially against man defense that Patricia is going to run. I like this Bear stack a lot. You can even get Cohen in there if you want. Obviously, don't run 3 people with it. Just maybe go a couple variations of Trubisky, Cohen, Robinson, Trubisky, Cohen, Miller, and then Trubisky with the 2 receivers, Trubisky with one of them, Marvin Jones on the back end, like Go said. But we'll get moving along. I want nothing to do with any other running back in this game. Go, same with you. No Swift, no Carry-On, no Adrian Peterson.
Nothing to do with that Detroit carousel back there. It's been a couple of years now where Detroit hasn't really had a featured back, and now that they brought in AP, I mean, he's not AP when he was in his prime, but it's still AP. And you know what? I'm not expecting anything less than pretty much 5 to 10 touches for all 3 of these guys, and there's no one that really sticks out to me. But the one thing I did want to ask you is that we've got news that David Montgomery is likely to play in this game. Is he someone that you have interest in, or are you still going with Tariq Cohen?
No, if I use any running back from Chicago, it's going to be Cohen. Again, with the man coverage too, Trubisky should get some rushing yards. He should be healthy. I know he's had some shoulder issues and taken hits in the past. I think we see a really good game out of him. He obviously needs to make a statement to save his job, so I think this is the spot. I wish the total was a little bit higher. Obviously, Golladay helps this Bear stack a lot too because it kind of keeps the pace moving. I don't know how Detroit's going to move the football, but it seems like sharp bettors are starting to move in on Chicago, so I like Chicago in this game, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. I wanted a lot of Stafford earlier in the week, but without Galladay, Stafford's out of my player pool, and every running back besides Cohen's out of my player pool here. If you guys want to ask questions too, feel free to put them in the chat. This is more for you than it is for us. We obviously have been staring at these games for months, so let's get it going. Next game, New England Patriots, Miami Dolphins, Cam Newton, and no Tom Brady in a Patriots uniform. This is going to be weird. I'll start this one off. I do like New England a little bit here. I love Cam Newton. He's going to be under 10% owned, likely around 5. I don't necessarily know what to think of these running backs. I don't think I'm going to roll the dice with Sony Michel at all. I think James White is a fine play. That's it. Nothing sexy there. His price is too damn high for what, we usually like to roster James White when he's 45, 5K on DraftKings. I don't know what he is on FanDuel, but it's still probably too much, especially for a guy that's likely to not get a touchdown. I could see Michel getting in the box here, but I don't know. I think if I'm going to use the Patriots, I'm going to use Cam Newton and use one of these receivers. What do you think, Ghost?
I'm definitely on the same page. I don't mind running Cam Newton pretty much on his own there without a stack. I mean, if he ends up pulling together a vintage performance where he ends up running one into the end zone, then that could definitely pay off and gives you a kind of a different look. Whether it's for cash, I'm probably going elsewhere for quarterback, but he's definitely someone that's in my cash player pool nonetheless. But even for your GPP lineups, typically we like to have at least 1 or 2 players stacked with our quarterback, but if you're looking to make a bit of a different build, then Cam Newton is a quarterback that you could pretty much play on his own. Specifically for FanDuel, James White is not someone that interests me too much just because of his price tag. Although it is relatively cheap at $5,300, you have guys like Boston Scott that are sitting $500 under him. So for cash, it's Boston Scott and you move on. Even if he puts up 0 points, he's going to be like 99% owned. So you just have to eat the chalk there. But for tournaments, even for James White, I do prefer Tariq Cohen, like we had mentioned in that first game, who's $100 cheaper. None of these receivers really appeal to me all that much on the New England side. I'm curious to see what Cam Newton's rapport is with guys like N'Keal Harry and Julian Edelman before I end up investing some heavy GPP money into a stock like that. But Cam is probably the safest bet of them all. But if you want to go on the flip side and get a little cute with your GPP lineups, I do have right now a Miami Dolphins stack with Fitzmagic and Devontae Parker. These guys were electric together towards the end of the season. And if the Pats end up kind of steamrolling them like they usually do with Brady behind center, I mean, it is a completely different team here, but let's not forget just how bad Miami is at football. So if Fitzmagic is airing it out all day long, then I'll probably have some shares with Devontae Parker and, of course, your boy Preston Williams.
Let's go. Yeah. Apparently, N'Keal Harry's out. If anybody can get confirmation on that, that would be great to know because I loved him a lot. I think Edelman's flying under the radar here. I'm not usually a big Edelman guy, but Cam's going to lean on him, especially early in the slots, kind of, similar routes to McCaffrey, those short routes that Cam could always throw accurately. He was always struggled with the deep ball. So I like Edelman, especially on DraftKings. I loved Harry. Apparently he's out. So if anybody could confirm that, that'd be great. One guy from a GPP side of things, on the other side of like a Cam Edelman stack or a Cam Harry stack, I don't think I want to stack Cam with 2 guys, regardless of if N'Keal Harry's in. I don't see Cam Newton having a huge passing game. Damiere Byrd, Lindsay just brought up too. So I think Damiere Byrd is probably getting a little too cute for GPPs. He's going to be 0% owned. But yeah, if N'Keal Harry's out, I think Byrd gets a little bit of a bump up, and I'll definitely consider him. But I do not want to double stack with Cam Newton because I don't see him throwing for 303. He's going to run the ball too. So likely if Cam has a good day through the air, I think it's probably just going to be one receiver that's going to have a big day. I don't want to double stack him like Russell Wilson. You could use Metcalf and Lockett. I don't think that's the situation in New England. On the other side, though, I love Preston Williams. The model likes him, but I'm probably going to fade a little bit here because of the knee injury. It seems like he's not 100% good to go. Same with Devontae Parker. He's not healthy. The only other guy I want to use here, there's actually 2. I know Rocker was asking about Jordan Howard. No, don't play Jordan Howard. Play Matt Breida if you think this game is going to go up pace and the Patriots are going to start scoring. Matt Breida is a guy that's going to be on the field in catch-up mode. No one's talking about him. He's perfect in DraftKings for PPR. I got him projected for 4 catches, way over the Vegas total. I know that's kind of a bold prediction, but in GPPs, that's kind of what I want to do to my projections, especially week 1, is get heavy on some guys that nobody is. And then my boy, Ghost Boy, Win Daly's boy, Mike Gesicki. I know the Patriots defense is really good, but their linebacking crew is decimated. They cannot cover this guy. He's going to go in the slot. He's going to play off the line. He's probably going to go out wide too, especially with Parker and Preston Williams. Mike Gesicki is probably my favorite GPP tight end, especially on DraftKings with the full point PPR. And then Zoki here, Alex, Russ, Jameson, Chargers, or Tyrod, Hollywood, Pats in cash. I'm not using Hollywood in cash. He doesn't have a floor, in my opinion. I'm not huge on Jameson either, but it makes much more sense on DraftKings. And then Russell Wilson, absolutely. If you can afford him in cash, go ahead. I actually right now am either thinking about Aaron Rodgers or Cam Newton in cash, or otherwise going all the way down to Trubisky, which is terrible for cash games. But the rest of my lineup, there's a lot of value right now with Boston Scott as a starter. You could do so much in cash games, and we'll kind of get into that right at the end, like our favorite build for cash. That's about it. I'm not playing Fitzpatrick. I don't want a ton of exposure to the Patriots, but I do like Cam here. But I'd rather kind of wait and see how he acclimates himself to this offense. Next game here, again, if you guys got questions, throw them in. Or if anybody has confirmation on N'Keal Harry, that would mean a lot to me because I like him a lot. Oh, Chalk City, here we go. Philly, Washington. All week it looked like it was going to be Antonio Gibson chalk. Now with Miles Sanders ruled out, Boston Scott chalk week, and kind of Gibson starting to go down a little bit. This is, kind of play like the stock market. I will not have Boston Scott in GPPs. I don't see the upside. Aces, oh yeah, I see that they're starting to stop the game talk here. Definitely play Lamar in cash if you could afford him. Absolutely. Don't ever question playing Lamar Jackson. You can half running back, half man, half quarterback, half man bear pig from South Park, whatever that is. Carson Wentz, though, what do you think about these quarterbacks? Carson Wentz, Haskins, I'm all over the place.
I was really high on Carson Wentz leading up to the week, but now with the limited options that he has, I'm kind of looking elsewhere, specifically on FanDuel. Sitting at 7,700, he's probably going to be the highest owned of that bunch. But you have a guy like Matt Ryan that's sitting $100 more expensive than him. That's in a game that's probably going to be a shootout, and I'm definitely higher on Josh Allen this week than most others in the industry are. So sitting at 7,700 on FanDuel, Carson Wentz is somebody that's I would consider relatively safe, but doesn't necessarily have that upside for a GPP takedown simply because of the weapons that he's dealing with. That being said, I do love Deshaun Jackson this week. We've been talking about it for weeks on end now, probably over a month. So I know that you might not be completely on board with that one, so we'll talk about it. But Deshaun Jackson is somebody that can absolutely blow up in week one, and he's done it throughout his career. I think he's averaged over 100 yards and a touchdown in week one, and look for him to kind of continue that pattern there today. Then again, he is a guy that doesn't really have a floor, similarly to what you were mentioning about Hollywood Brown, right? So for cash games, is Djax a viable option? I would say he's in my player pool, but he's not necessarily a cash game lock.
Yeah, I mean, Deshaun Jackson chalk week. I mean, who's better in week one historically, him or Sammy Watkins? Those guys just go off all the time. This is what I don't like about this game is a lot of people are going to go Wentz, Boston Scott, and Deshaun Jackson. That is a three-man stack that may accumulate 100% aggregate ownership. If you're playing Deshaun Jackson, do not use Boston Scott in that lineup. I know they both can kind of go through the passing game, but or unless you get really, really different somewhere else in that lineup, you'd have to play a guy like Breida or Gesicki, someone that nobody's on. But I kind of like Scary Terry McLaurin, Darius Slay. Like everybody thinks he's going to shadow. Jim Schwartz never does that. He's kind of pig-headed, or maybe he just thinks Darius Slay likes one side of the field. I don't know. I always thought Darius Slay was really good at shadow coverage when he was in Detroit. I don't know. I don't really want to pivot to Steven Sims. I think he's in a good spot for sure, but I don't see this game being as up-paced as we think. I think I'm excited to watch Washington's defense. Chase Young, this Philly line is absolutely brutal right now. Everybody's hurt. That's why I'm off Boston Scott and GPPs, man. If he's going to be 40, 50% owned, if he just duds or, doesn't do anything, maybe gets 6-7 points, doesn't hit value, 50% of the field's likely eliminated right there unless they have a crazy weird lineup of someone that's going to be 0% owned and goes off. And that's similar to what I think about Deshaun Jackson. Again, don't use two of them in the same lineup, but I'm likely not to use both. I will have some Deshaun Jackson because he can hit value with one play, especially with Ronald Darby. I always talk about Ronald Darby. and how I want to pick on him. And now this week I don't want to do it just because I see such crazy ownership on Deshaun Jackson. But Deshaun Jackson can also get hurt in one play too. We see it every single year. The guy's made of glass. I'm worried about it. I think the only guy I want outside of cash games, you have to use Boston Scott. Don't use Deshaun Jackson with Boston Scott. Again, I mentioned that GPPs. Don't do it in cash either, because if this Philly offense lays an egg, Deshaun Jackson and Boston Scott are going to lay an egg. You cannot afford 2 bad scores in cash games. Zack Ertz, how is he only 10% owned on DraftKings? He is their wide receiver 1. He is their wide receiver 2. Talk to me about Ertz here. Why is nobody playing him?
I don't know. I don't know if I don't know if people get too hyped about, contract disputes and whatnot, and a player says, he's got a bit of a frowny face on him today in that locker room. I don't know what's going on. I don't really understand how one of the most reliable tight ends in the entire league is only 10% owned. I mean, especially for cash games, if you're not going Deshaun Jackson, then I'm not a big fan of stacking in cash. I would highly advise against it, and I know you recommend the same. But Boston Scott chalk, and then pairing it with Zack Ertz is not necessarily that bad of an option, simply because of the floor that Zack Ertz has. He's going to be a target machine, and I'm really expecting big things from him in this game. The one thing that I am a little bit wary of is Philly loves to run 2 tight end sets with both him and Dallas Goddard on the field, especially in the red zone. The problem with Philly is that in recent years, they've always had burner wide receivers, in the sense that they haven't really had a great route runner in that end for the red zone. So Zack Ertz might be that guy, but typically Dallas Goddard averages way more targets than him in the red zone. And Zack Ertz ends up blocking. And especially to touch on that Washington defensive line, like what you had said, I don't foresee Boston Scott being able to steamroll through the tackles here.
No.
I would imagine them running 2 tight end sets, pitching it to him on the outside, and him trying to get to the outside and gain whatever yardage that he can. But with that defensive line that's there, I really think Philly's going to have to rely on Zack Ertz to block a little bit more than he typically does. But that being said, if their offensive line can step up, or if they can kind of wear down that defensive line or even that front 7, then Zack Ertz is in a prime spot to be catching a lot of balls over the middle.
Yep. One guy I will touch on real quick, and then we'll get moving to the next game. Everybody wanted to draft him in season long. No one wants to play him today. Jalen Reagor. I think this could be a little sneaky spot. You don't have to have much of him. No one's going to play him. He'll probably be 1% owned tops. I'm going to have a couple lineups with Reagor and just fade Deshaun Jackson. And, if I'm going to use Wentz in a stack, it's going to be Reagor and Ertz, or Reagor and Goddard, because I'm not eating the chalk of Boston Scott and Deshaun Jackson. Again, I'll talk about that all day. But I think Reagor is flying under the radar here a little bit. I know he's been banged up all offseason or preseason, whatever you want to call it, whatever just happened. Camp, I guess that's the term for it. But I do like a little bit of Jalen Reagor in like a millionaire maker style of tournament. You don't need to play him in single entry. You don't have to go that low. Next game here, Green Bay Packers, Minnesota Vikings. I love this game. I'll go out and say it right now. My main stack is going to be Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Jones, Davante Adams. Davante Adams is super chalky. You need to play him in cash games as well. He is a great play. I don't care what ownership he's at. I'm playing it. This Minnesota secondary is awful. They're so young. There's no way they can cover Davante Adams with or without safety coverage. Harrison Smith's out there too, but he's probably likely to stare at the tight end a little bit. It's probably going to be Robert Tonyan today, but even with bracket coverage, Davante Adams is going to get 10-plus targets today. This is a great spot for him. I love it. And I always want Dalvin Cook on the backside. I am not playing any other Minnesota Viking, anybody that's a Adam Thielen truther, and he's like 15% owned today. I'm a hard fade. He's out of my player pool.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, Aaron Rodgers' price on FanDuel is a crime. 7,500 for Aaron Rodgers just makes no sense. And then you have 7,800 for Aaron Jones, and Davante Adams is, although it seems like a steep price to pay, $8,000 for a wide receiver that if Aaron Rodgers is throwing the ball 25 times today, I wouldn't be surprised to see Davante Adams get 24 targets. So for a guy that's going to be a target machine, red zone, no matter what the situation is, first down, second down, third down, Davante Adams is going to be the guy that he always looks to first. They could double this guy all day long. He'll beat that coverage. I'm not worried about it at all. The one thing that I do like about Aaron Jones' upside as well is hopefully they'd like to get him involved in the passing game. And I'm really expecting big things from Green Bay here, as well as Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook has torched that Green Bay run defense. They did make some switches in the offseason, but I'm expecting big things from the guy that just got a massive payday. And with Diggs out of town, a lot of people keep talking about Adam Thielen this and Adam Thielen that. I'd love to see Dalvin Cook get quite a few more receptions here. Kirk Cousins doesn't really have the most viable weapons out there other than Adam Thielen. So with Alexander Mattison basically not being a pass catching back whatsoever, Dalvin Cook's going to get quite a few looks in that backfield, and they're going to try to get him into open space. So running that same stack, like what you had said, Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Jones, Devontae Adams, running it back with Dalvin Cook is surprisingly really cheap over on FanDuel, and it lets you pretty much do whatever you want else with the rest of your lineup.
Yeah, same with DraftKings. I know Aaron Jones' price is a little bit higher than I thought it would be, but this dude tears up Minnesota. 133 all-purpose yards his last 3 meetings, average, obviously, with Minnesota. No one's playing him. This dude's under 5% owned. I don't know what else he needed to do last year to have faith in this guy. The only thing I'm scared about, Ghost hit it right on the head. We hope that he is involved in the passing game. He is a really good receiver, but for some reason, this team just has to give Jamal Williams touches. I hate it. I just don't know why they don't run Aaron Jones in the ground, especially on his contract year. They're likely not to re-sign him. They probably already would have done it by now. So they should just ride him like a horse until the wheels fall off, because he's probably not a key part of their future, just like Aaron Rodgers when they drafted Jordan Love, but whatever. That is my favorite stack. The Bears were my favorite stack all week, and then with Galladay out, I just, question the pace like I talked about earlier. But a 2%, 3% owned Aaron Rodgers against a horrible secondary. I ran the 80 mile, and it backdates to other games and kind of gives it like a matchup grade. And the last game that Aaron Rodgers had this good of a pre-match or pre-kickoff matchup rating this high was week 7 of last year against the Oakland Raiders. If you're bored, go look up that box score. I'm not expecting him to have 5 touchdowns and 400-some yards, but I think he goes over 270 yards, 3 touchdowns, great game. Hopefully Devontae Adams gets 2 and Aaron Jones gets 1 through the air, and that is a very unique stack that nobody's going to go with. But yeah, I'm Minnesota. It sounds like both of us are off Thielen, so that's cool. Just too many good corners in Green Bay. Their secondary is really solid, and I don't know. Kirk Cousins, I don't like it. I do love Kubiak and their outside run zone scheme. That's why I'm going to Dalvin Cook. He's their best player. They're going to facilitate through him, through the air, on the ground. Dalvin Cook is a smash spot today at relatively low ownership, too. He's under 10%. That's I don't get that at all. Next game, gross one. Indianapolis Colts, Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm just going to name 3 players that I'm going to be using in some lineups. I love DJ Chark. Nobody's playing him. He's under 10% owned as well. They're going to be playing catch-up. Indy is a big favorite in this game. The total's pretty low, but give me DJ Chark in catch-up mode. This guy's going to have 30% of the target share at a minimum. That's going to be awesome. I know we'll see some Chris Thompson out there too. That's probably going to take away some pass plays from Chark, but no one in this Indianapolis secondary can keep up with DJ Chark. We saw a lot out of him. I really like him as a route runner. He's going to get like Rock Ya-Sin and Xavier Rhodes. Both those guys, yeah, that's bad for them. But I do like the Colts defense. Good cash game play, good tournament play. Depends what their ownership is. On FanDuel, I love Marlon Mack. Nobody is playing Marlon Mack. Everybody thinks Jonathan Taylor's just coming in, getting all the work. Marlon Mack's prop, I think on PointsBets, if any of you guys have PointsBet, his prop's like 48 rushing yards. The models got him for over 70, so I think he gets it done in the first half. All you guys get a winning bet in your first half right there with Marlon Mack. Other guy in this game I want, Jack Doyle. I want a ton of Jack Doyle. Phil Rivers is the tight end whisperer. It's more the value of Doyle, 3,600. I think Indy's just going to run the hell out of the ball, and when they need first downs, they go to Jack Doyle. He gets us 4 or 5, 6 catches, 60 yards. Hopefully he gets in the box. That's a hell of a value play at the tight end position. T.Y. Hilton has a very, very, very plus matchup with Herndon on the outside. He could burn him, and it's, T.Y. Hilton's kind of like Deshaun Jackson, though, could leave the game at any time. But if you want to pivot away from Deshaun Jackson, similar price and DraftKings, T.Y. Hilton is that guy at under 10% ownership instead of a 30% owned Deshaun Jackson. But that's it for me. I'm not going to play Phil Rivers. I kind of want to wait and see, but this team should probably run the ball a lot today. And I'm not necessarily interested in Hilton. He'll just be a pivot away from Deshaun Jackson.
Pretty much on the same page. I mean, I kept asking myself as I was building my lineups yesterday, how much Marlon Mack is too much Marlon Mack. I mean, his price is just way too low. And I know we can't read into these, like you called it, training camp, I guess we could call it, news updates that we're receiving. But everyone knows that Phillip Rivers loves to throw to his running backs. He loves to throw to his tight ends. And they're saying the primary beneficiaries of that are Marlon Mack and Jack Doyle. There was no mention of Jonathan Taylor in there. Even if he is the more talented back, you got to give the kid a bit of a break here in the sense that he's coming into the NFL rookie year. He's trying to learn a new playbook, playing with a bunch of experienced players and one of the most experienced QBs that's still in the league, right? So I'm not expecting big things from Jonathan Taylor early on in the season, maybe later on, depending on what their playoff situation is looking like. But again, Marlon Mack here is in a smash spot in week one. Jacksonville absolutely blows against the run. The one thing that is kind of enticing me to increase my exposure to Jack Doyle, as if I didn't already have enough, people are kind of diving into analytics and seeing that Jacksonville is good against the tight end. And, Jack Doyle hasn't had over 10 PPR points against Jacksonville in his career, and et cetera, et cetera. He's never had a quarterback like Phillip Rivers that loves tight ends as much as he does, right? Jacoby Brissett is not a tight end guy. He likes to air it out. And Phillip Rivers was there. He had Mike Williams to air it out to. Didn't really do it all that much. It was always Keenan Allen over the middle. It was always Austin Eckler. It was always Hunter Henry even got more targets than Mike Williams sometimes. So look for Jack Doyle and Marlon Mack to really feast in this game. I'm all over DJ Chark, like what you had mentioned as well. Chris Thompson makes for an interesting pivot in GPPs, but I'm coming off it. I mean, I want to see what that running back rotation looks like early on in the season before I end up investing some heavy money into a guy like Chris Thompson.
Yep, I'm with you 100%. The other thing about Doyle, he's always had a couple other tight ends that were healthy and ready to go too. We had Eric Ebron there, Mo Alley Cox get some snaps. He's healthy, but Trey Burton, the backup tight end here in Indy, is gone. So this is or on the IR or hurt, whatever. He's always hurt. Doyle's going to get a good workload today. The price is just too low, so buy in now while the price is low before he becomes like a mid-4, almost 5K tight end with tight end whisperer Phillip Rivers. Next game that all of us probably love, one of the higher totals on the day, 49 points on this total, Seattle at Atlanta. Should be the highest pace game we get. I know Seattle is a run-first team for the most part, but I want a ton of Russell Wilson today. I want a good bit of Matt Ryan. I prefer Wilson. I just see give me the guy with the rushing floor. I'm going to take that every time. But, man, this should be a very fun game to watch. No one's really playing Todd Gurley. No one's playing Chris Carson. I think that's the way to get different in this game is use the running backs. But Metcalf, you got to use him in cash. I think that is an absolute lock for cash games. His ownership's going down a little bit as more value opened up, but I think he is in an absolute smash spot. You got that rookie cornerback for Atlanta. I think it's going to be a rude awakening trying to cover Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. And then Isaiah Oliver on the other side. That's trouble. Lockett and Metcalf are going to have a big day. You can pair them both with Wilson. But again, the way to get difference, probably to find a way to get Carson in there. The model likes Carson a ton. I tried to throttle him down as well just because I don't know what he's going to do in the passing game. But on the other side, Todd Gurley, why is he so low owned? His price is so low. I get the knee issues that everybody's scared about, but all they have on the depth chart is Ito Smith and Brian Hill that are likely not to see the field besides on special teams. So Gurley's a 3-down back. I saw DraftKings posted his receiving prop at 17 yards. He's going to smash that too. Like no one is coming out of the backfield to take snaps away from Todd Gurley right now. It's a 1-year deal. It's a prove-it deal. They're going to use him. So I love Gurley in this game. Obviously, Julio Jones, Ridley, I'll let you talk about them. I like them a lot too. One other comment from me on this game, I'm going to be fading Hayden Hurst in GPPs. The ownership's getting a little too high. Got Jamal Adams out there. I want to see the Seattle D. I don't think it is a smash spot for Hurst. I think he's fine in cash at that ownership. It's definitely an offense that runs through the tight end a lot as well. Obviously, we saw Hooper just be a animal last year in this system. I think Hurst's a better athlete. Matt Ryan says the same thing. He loves this guy. So I'm not necessarily saying it's a good fade. I'm just, I got to take my stances on some ownership in GPPs. I'm not playing Hayden Hurst.
Yeah, pretty much on the same board. I mean, I want all the Russell Wilson shares that I can get. It's 2020. We play rushing quarterbacks. We want guys that run around out there and get us those extra points. So hopefully Seattle ends up letting the man do his thing and letting him loose and kind of just letting him scramble and do whatever he needs to do to win this football game for them. But Russell Wilson is in a smash spot. And while I do like Tyler Lockett, I definitely prefer DK Metcalf. There was one thing that I wanted to touch on. There's going to be a couple stats here. When the Eagles played them last year, when they were decimated by injuries, they basically had a practice squad for wide receivers. They had outside wide receiver Nelson Aguilar, who is a wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5 on Las Vegas. Let that sink in for a second. He went for 8, 107 and 1. T.Y. Hilton, 8, 65 and 1. Will Fuller, 14, 217 and 3. Larry Fitzgerald, 6 for 69 and a touchdown. Michael Thomas, 13 for 182. I think you're getting the point right now, but the one thing I want to mention is that another guy by the name of Chris Godwin went for 7, 184 and 3. They get absolutely torched by outside wide receivers. If you're not playing DK Metcalf today in cash, in GPP, whatever contest you're playing, I have a feeling that it's a big mistake. This guy's going to absolutely feast on this secondary. Tyler Lockett's going to get his too. And why not throw in Chris Carson in some of your stocks as well? Nobody's talking about Chris Carson, both season long, both DFS. You've already mentioned that before. I just don't get it. This is a guy that they trust tremendously. Has he had fumble issues in the past? Yes, but he's still continuously out there. It's very rare that we saw him fumble and all of a sudden ends up sitting the bench. I mean, this guy fumbled 2-3 times in a game once, and he was still getting goal line carries, right? So while there are rumors that Carlos Hyde might, get into his touches and this and that, I'm not buying that. Chris Carson is the guy there. And you could get a nice running back stack from that game over on FanDuel. Todd Gurley's there at 7,100. Chris Carson is there pretty much at the same price at 72. Russell Wilson at 84 is the second highest price QB on the board, but definitely has the upside to pay off for it. DK Metcalf at 6,400 is just absurd to me. He should be 7K plus over on FanDuel, especially. And you got to mix in some Tyler Lockett in there as well. For our cash games on FanDuel, Hayden Hurst is probably going to be pulling most of the ownership there. I'm not opposed to playing it simply because he can have a stat line like 2 for 29 and maybe a touchdown if he gets one in the red zone. But don't exactly like what Stix said. Don't expect 100 plus yards from a game like this where you have that Seattle defense that still has a solid linebacker core and of course the addition of Jamal Adams.
Yeah. Again, I think the way to get different on this game, you got to use some of these receivers, but that is the mindset everybody has is, it's a high total. Let's get the pass catching guys and everything like that. But a high total, that just means a lot of touchdowns, a lot of red zone work. Who are guys that are most likely to score in the red zone? Running backs. Get some Gurley, get some Carson, get a ton of Metcalf, get a ton of Lockett. Just kind of mix and match the way you get exposure to this game. I think almost every lineup I have has one Atlanta Falcon and one Seattle Seahawk on it, no matter what. Like in my Bear stack, I'll run, Trubisky, Robinson, Miller maybe, or just Trubisky and Robinson or Trubisky and Miller. Use Marvin Jones in there to kind of get the back and forth there in that game that I think is going to be up pace. And then get Metcalf and Gurley on one side. Like you could do so many different things. Just make sure you get exposure to both of these teams. In these games that you think shoot out, you want exposure to both sides because every drive can just be, moving your lineup up. Every drive you're getting a couple points here, a couple points there. Then you get the touchdown and everything, just goes right there. It kind of limit your exposure everywhere else and just focus on a couple games. And if you get those games right, your lineups are going to be right. Instead of playing just 9 random dudes, you need 9 random game scripts to go your way. Just lock in on the games you like and get exposure to them in every lineup. Moving on. Baltimore, Cleveland. I don't know. I mean, obviously Lamar Jackson's the best quarterback in the NFL for fantasy football purposes. Ingram, Dobbins, I have no read there. I think if I had to, I'm going to go with Ingram. It's kind of similar to the Marlon Mack thing. The role's just not going to disappear right for him. So I do want some Ingram, but I don't want to use him when I use Lamar. They don't really ever pass to Mark Ingram. So make sure your lineup makes sense. If you're using Lamar, Mark Ingram doesn't really correlate with him very well because they could both run for a touchdown in the red zone. You're not going to get your double points there. But Hollywood Brown chalk week, I'm going to fade 24%, 25% in tournaments. I am 100% out on that. But I'm not saying I'm out on Baltimore. When I get Lamar Jackson, I'm pairing him with one guy and one guy only. That is Mr. Mark Andrews. I absolutely love him. He is my number 1 tight end on the board this week. I know Kittle's playing Arizona, but Arizona's defense is a little bit better than it is last year, and they drafted Isaiah Simmons and probably just every single day at camp. Just gave him a tape. Here, go watch George Kittle. Figure out a way to stop him. And he still probably won't stop him at all. But that game also has some weather concerns that we talked about. But Mark Andrews is my number one tight end on the board overall. I love Lamar. I love Andrews. And you could pull it back on the other side with Jarvis or Odell. I prefer Jarvis. He has just great numbers against the Ravens, and you could beat him on the inside as opposed to the outside. Those corners are so good. That secondary is so good. Pass rush is good. Run defense is good. But I do want a little bit of Nick Chubb in GPPs. Again, outside zone scheme, Stefanski. If you've listened to me at all babble this summer, I love this offense. Not really this week, but I will have Nick Chubb. He's 2% owned. It's Nick Chubb, guys. That's all I have to say. You're going to want to be overweight on Nick Chubb. Not crazy, but you don't have to be crazy because he's 3% owned. So get yourself like 10% of him in your lineups, I guess.
I love it. Playing Lamar on his own is something that really interests me. That's what I'm doing right now for my cash game build. I went Lamar. It's week one. There's a lot of uncertainty. Why not just lock in the best quarterback on the board there? Like I said before, it's 2020. We play rushing quarterbacks. This guy's half running back, half quarterback, half godlike. Who knows what else you could describe him as? I mean, he's a reigning MVP, and he's going to actually come out even stronger than he was last year, in my opinion. And he's a guy that's in a smash spot. Pairing him with Hollywood Brown for GPPs is something I'm okay with. Not necessarily 100% on board. Hollywood Brown has zero floor whatsoever. And if Mark Andrews ends up being the target monster that we think he will be, he'll be the primary beneficiary there. And the main thing that you want out of Hollywood Brown is that 75-yard TD bomb, because he's not a guy that excels in those small to medium end routes, and he's not a guy that's going to cut over the middle and get a couple of yards after catch. He's a burner. He's going to try and get that 60, 70, 80-yard touchdown, and that's pretty much it. And that's what you're hinging on for your GPP lineup. So in a large field tournament like a Millie Maker, you want to end up going Hollywood Brown. I'm okay with it. Even at that point, I can argue that his ownership is simply too high for a contest like that. But if you're playing Lamar, like you said, I'd much rather pair him with Mark Andrews. He's the main guy there. We've heard him that he's going to have an increased snap count as well compared to last year. Look for his targets to increase, and they don't really need their tight ends blocking when they have Lamar back there. I mean, he's a guy that can scramble 30 yards backwards and then end up getting a 50-yard gain over the line of scrimmage, right? So I'm really expecting big things from this Ravens offense, and I am all over Nick Chubb. I was talking with both Rocker and Jay on our Saturday Teams call, of course, and when I saw Nick Chubb there at 1.5 to 2% owned, I just completely stopped talking for a little bit. I didn't understand. This is still Nick Chubb. I was absolutely mind blown. Nick Chubb is one of the most talented running backs in the league from a raw talent standpoint. He's got Stefanski there now. And in a game last year, he went for 20, 165, and 3 against this Ravens defense. I don't see how you could fade a guy like that in your GPP lineups. I mean, you're getting one of the most talented running backs in the league at 1 to 2, maybe 3% owned. There's a bunch of guys around him on FanDuel that are going to come in way higher owned than he is. I mean, you got on the lower end, we do have Gurley and Carson, who we do like, but right above them, you have Eckler, you have Josh Jacobs, you have Alvin Kamara, Dalvin Cook. They're all pushing 20 to 25% ownership. If I can get Nick Chubb at a 10th of the ownership of those guys, sign me up.
Yes, sir. I am 100% with it. Get some Nick Chubb today. What do we got next game? I know you're going to like this one a little bit. I don't know what to do with him. I'm over the field on Josh Allen, and it took me a while to get there. I did not want to play him. I don't like the pace of this game, but this dude, it doesn't matter what the total is. Some days the Buffalo Bills total is like 38, and he still goes off in his QB1 or QB2 behind Lamar Jackson, but the value on Allen is just incredible. I think I want to pair him with Stephon Diggs. This is similar to Cam Newton. If I'm using Josh Allen, I'm not using two receivers with him because it's never there that he's airing the ball out like crazy. What we want from Josh Allen is about 60 yards rushing. He's going to get a rushing touchdown. You know, it seems to happen every other day for him. And then pair him up with either Diggs or John Brown. That's the only way I want to go with that. I know Cole Beasley's a target hog, but that's more in like a game where Buffalo could potentially be trailing. I don't see him doing a ton of things today. He's out of my player pool, and Cole Beasley, Dawson Knox. I don't want anything to do with either of these tight ends. How about Chris Herndon's ownership? What the hell? Do people even know who he is? Like, who is responsible for the Chris Herndon hype train. I don't get it. He's a talented player for sure, but no, I'm not playing 15% owned Chris Herndon. Some of these fades are just way too easy, in my opinion. If he goes off, whatever, you guys could tweet at me, and I'll be losing money anyway if he goes off. But that's all I want. The only guy for the Jets in play for me is Jamison Crowder on DraftKings. I don't think Ghost, you probably don't like him on FanDuel at all just because the floor is there for sure, but you need the full point PPR for him. So in lineups that I use Josh Allen and or Diggs or Brown, you could definitely run Josh Allen naked. He can, obviously run him by himself is just fine. But it makes perfect sense to use Jamison Crowder on the other side because if Josh Allen and Diggs or Brown have a big game in your little stack there, Jets have to be playing catch up. So it makes perfect sense to use their most targeted player in Jamison Crowder. I mean, I guess the same could be said about Herndon, but I don't see that happening. It's going to be Crowder on the back end for me on every single Josh Allen stack that I use.
Over on FanDuel, I'm going to keep this one short and sweet because that's exactly what it is. Again, 2020, we play rushing quarterbacks. Josh Allen is going to get in the end zone on the ground today at least once, in my opinion. And he's a guy that's not going to be too highly owned considering the quarterbacks that are around him. You have bigger names like Drew Brees around him, and Russell Wilson's in a smash spot, and right below him you have Matt Ryan and Carson Wentz. So he's kind of sandwiched in that group over on FanDuel where he's getting virtually no ownership. So in a GPP lineup, I do like running him naked, pretty much playing him alone. If I am pairing him with somebody, I give the slight edge to John Brown over Stephon Diggs just because of the lack of preseason action. But again, if we were training camp whisperers, we'd all be making millions of dollars today. So you're going to have to take some shots on both, right? So whenever you're making a Stephon Diggs lineup, pretty much match that lineup and replace Diggs with John Brown. And one of the stacks is bound to hit. Josh Allen is in a great spot here. On the Jets side, I have virtually no interest of anybody. I am on the Herndon hype train, but not in week one. This Buffalo D is really something else. They're one of the best defensive units in the league. I want to see what happens with Darnold, see if he's still seeing ghosts and whatnot, and we'll see what happens with him there. So I'm not touching this Jets offense with a 10-foot pole. Without the full point PPR, I am not paying $6,000 for Jamison Crowder. On DraftKings, I'm definitely overweight because of the full point PPR and the upside that he has, along with the bonuses that DraftKings gives you with their point structure. FanDuel does not have any of that. So paying $6K for a guy like Jamison Crowder is not something that interests me. I want nothing to do with the Buffalo running back situation between Moss and Singletary. Rumors have it that Moss is going to end up getting some early down work and Singletary is going to be mixed in there. Plus he's getting the pass catching duties, but I'm going to take a wait and see approach there. And Le'Veon Bell that one's self-explanatory. He's not Lev Bell from when he was with the Steelers. He's somebody that you could definitely take a shot on, but again, I want to see what happens with players like that. So my main interest from this game is Josh Allen with John Brown, and then pretty much duplicating that lineup and replacing Brown with Diggs.
Yep, that's the way to go. No one could really hit that one perfectly, so you got to use both. Get a lineup with one, get a lineup with the other. Crowder on the back end on DraftKings, and then maybe no Jets at all on FanDuel because it's just not worth it. Next game, Las Vegas Raiders, Carolina Panthers. I thought this game would be a little up pace. I'm not necessarily sure what to think, but Derek Carr's in play for me. I don't love the upside. I'd rather go to like Trubisky, running quarterbacks 2020. Ghost hits it on the head every time. But I think Derek Carr, this is the best matchup he'll probably have for quite some time. I just want all of the Josh Jacobs I can get. I know he's super, super chalky, but good chalk, in my opinion, for sure. I hope he gets involved in the passing game a little bit this week too. And that this whole season I've been talking about Josh Jacobs. So this is the way to go. It's not going to be a stack box like it was last year, and he still had success last year. With Ruggs on the outside, Bryan Edwards on the outside, still got Waller. It's just a much more respected passing game, and defenses are going to know that too. And Carolina's defense is terrible. The worst run defense in the NFL last year, and now the defensive line and Luke Kuechly all gone. This team just got worse, and they were the worst last year. So I don't know what that translates to, just besides horrible. So use all the Josh Jacobs you can. McCaffrey, I'm going to let Ghost talk about McCaffrey in a second here. But the thing that I love about this game is every single fantasy outlet out there besides us, honestly, just because I was probably off of them for the prices. Everybody talked up DJ Moore. He's going to be a top 10 receiver this year. DJ Moore, right? The value in drafts, you can get him in round 4, round 5. Your wide receiver 1. Cool. I get that. But why? Where are you guys at? All these DJ Moore truthers. He's under 5% owned in the best matchup he's likely to have in a long time. I talked about it last night on Sirius. Trayvon Mullen. And then who is the other guy here? I should know this. I looked into this matchup so much. Obviously, I probably drank too much last night, but that's going to happen. And then Arnett, the rookie. So you're getting a rookie corner and then Trayvon Mullen and then LaMarcus Joyner in the slot. And DJ Moore plays all over the place. So does Curtis Samuel. So I like both of those guys, but I don't get it. If you love DJ Moore for season long, you're going to fade him in his best matchup of the season, in my opinion, or the first half of the season. Give me all of the DJ Moore. It's going to be – those are my 2 GPP receivers that I love, and every lineup's going to have one of them. Most likely is the DJ brothers, DJ Moore or DJ Chark. I love both those guys at under 8% ownership, most likely. Sorry, Goats. I can go on a tangent there. Just everybody in the DFS industry and the fantasy industry that touted DJ Moore and they're not playing him, they're frauds, and I'm calling them out right now. Lindsay's talking about Brian Edwards. I think it's sneaky upside for sure. His ownership's not – it's pretty low, 3 to 5% I'm looking at here. Henry Ruggs is almost up to 10. So obviously people like this Las Vegas Raiders passing game, so they're probably going to have a lot of Carr. I don't see why his ownership's so low unless people are just using Ruggs and Edwards as a one-off. I think it's the same thing as Buffalo. We don't really know what to expect. Use one of them and then get another lineup with the other guy. I'm going to fade Darren Waller, but his ownership's pretty low too, so you could use him. I didn't see my builds really getting a way to afford him because I'd either go up to Andrews or down to Jack Doyle for the most part, or use some Hawkinson with the Bears like I talked about, or I'm using Mike Gesicki against Cam Newton. So that's kind of how my builds are. I really have limited exposure because I'm really high on some certain spots. Man, this DJ Moore thing just it pisses me off, but it's hilarious because I'll be the beneficiary of it today. But what do you got on McCaffrey? What do you got on anybody else in this game? That's pretty much my take is get DJ Moore. Curtis Samuel too, great spot. So kind of I'm more on more, but more on more. All right. Take it over.
On FanDuel, McCaffrey is a little bit more realistic in the sense that you could jam him in your builds. I mean, my cash game build right now is McCaffrey and Boston Scott, and that's pretty much what everybody's going to be doing. And I know it's fun to kind of defer from that, but definitely not in your cash games. Both of them are pulling 45+% ownership right now, and then the next tier of Josh Jacobs, Dalvin Cook, and co there are pretty much in the 15 to 20% range. So it's pretty much a lock that the majority of the field is going to have both CMC and Boston Scott as their running back. So you got to play the man. And right now, I know last season I ended up making the mistake of fading McCaffrey a couple weeks, and I'm not making that same mistake here in week 1. He's a guy that's going to be in the large majority of my lineups over on FanDuel. Again, on DraftKings, it's way harder to do it. I tried to end up building it, but I just couldn't end up getting the looks that I wanted with the players that both of us are high on. So I'm a little bit underweight on McCaffrey over on DraftKings, but on FanDuel, it's absolutely no issue with the amount of value that's on the board. I can't say enough about Josh Jacobs. I know you love him. I know our team loves him. He's in a smash spot. Carolina absolutely blows versus the run. He's a guy that's going to get a ton of looks. Hopefully that he actually ends up getting involved in the passing game as well. Of course, Jalen Richard is still there, and he was always the threat to that backfield. I don't know why a lot of people were saying, with Theo Riddick signed and then he got released, Josh Jacobs getting all the touches and this and that. I'm hoping that he does end up getting a little bit more targets, but Jalen Richard was always the primary threat there. He always has been. And they did end up giving him quite a bit of money in his extension. So we did adjust our projections accordingly, and I know that the model reflects that, and that's something that you guys would definitely want to go check out. Josh Jacobs is due for an increase in targets, and I'm hoping that it does end up panning out here today. DJ Moore and is just in a smash spot. He was pretty much the biggest hype train of the offseason, along with Austin Eckler. I understand it. And again, if you're not playing him in a matchup like this, then you could argue that you shouldn't play him in weeks 2 to 17. Because if there's ever a matchup that you want to play him in, it's this one right here. I'm also taking a look at possibly taking a shot on Robbie Anderson. I can't get there just yet, but sitting there at 5,600, he does make an interesting pivot to the Marquise Brown and Deshaun Jacksons of the world and of this first week 1 slate here. So he could be somebody that's somewhat interesting. I know Teddy Bridgewater did have quite a few connections with him in training camp from some beat writers and whatnot. They're saying that he's looking good out there. So I don't mind taking a few shots on Robbie Anderson, but again, it's tough for me to get there because I don't really want to pair him with Teddy because of the lack of upside that's there. And there's another quarterback that's there over on FanDuel. I'm pretty sure he's the exact same price. He's $200 more expensive for a guy that we're about to talk about in the 4:00 games. And of course, Trubisky is only $100 more than Teddy. So because of that, I'm not really on Carolina stacks. I'm more so just locking in the 2 running backs there and possibly getting a couple shares of DJ Moore.
All right. Next game. Sleeper tight end for me, just in big GPPs, not like a single entry or anything like that. Ian Thomas. Same reason I like DJ Moore. Just no one's on Ian Thomas. I think if they're playing catch up, Ian Thomas can have a sneaky good game. We just need him to get in the end zone because the volume's not going to be there. McCaffrey, me personally, I'm underweight just because I can't afford him with how much I love Dalvin Cook and Josh Jacobs and Devontae Adams. It just it doesn't work for me to have McCaffrey, and that sucks. I'll get him in some MME, but that's always scary to fade Christian McCaffrey. It's not because of him as a player, but yeah, whatever. Next game, Chargers, Bengals. Joe Burrow, debut. Loving to see it. I'll just come out and say it. Usually I can always call a Joe Mixon game correctly and when he's going to blow up. I'm not feeling it today, Ghost. I am not feeling Joe Mixon. I love him more than anybody. I'm always fixing for a Mixon. You guys like that? Austin Eckler, though, certainly in play. I like him. I hate him as a player, but this is a good matchup for him. I think he's perfect in cash. He's fine in GPPs. I don't want anything to do with either of these quarterbacks. I do, Tyrod Taylor's a value. I think you do way worse than him, but I'm interested in 2 receivers in this game. Keenan Allen, Tyler Boyd, both under 5% ownership. Where's everybody at in Tyler Boyd? Joe Burrow made a living and made himself a rich man with the first overall pick by feeding slot receivers. AJ Green's more popular than Tyler Boyd, which is awesome because Tyler Boyd is so much more effective. I was preaching this last year. When there's outside help, when everybody's hurt and it's just Tyler Boyd as a wide receiver 1 and he's got to move to the outside, he is not nearly as effective. Same thing with Adam Thielen. Without Diggs, I don't like him because Thielen probably has to move to the outside. He did his best work as an inside receiver, in my opinion, in PPR for sure with the volume. Tyler Boyd, a great spot today. Cincinnati or Los Angeles defense is pretty solid. They're a good play in DraftKings as well. But Keenan Allen, man, if Mike Williams is playing, it's most likely to be a decoy. If anybody's got news on Mike Williams, please let us know too. Last I saw was questionable. But Keenan Allen, Tyler Boyd, very nice values there. They are wide receiver 1s under that 7K threshold, which is something I always like to look for, especially in week 1. It doesn't seem like the top dogs in the receiving pool go off early in the season. But getting those wide receiver 1s under 7K on DraftKings, both of these guys do that right there. Keenan Allen, Tyler Boyd. That's where I want to go in this game.
There is one guy that I want to touch on, and it kind of goes back to what we were saying with Tyrod Taylor. He's a guy, again, we play rushing quarterbacks. If he ends up doing his thing back there, kind of playing a very college-esque type of offense where him and Eckler are just trying to both get into open space at that point, and they end up doing their thing back there, then he could be in for a big day. But again, it's somebody that I want to take that wait-and-see approach, and especially on FanDuel when you have guys like Trubisky that are there, or even at the higher price range, you could only spend maybe $400 more and you get Aaron Rodgers. So not somebody that I'm too interested as of yet. We'll see. We still have an hour before lock, so I might increase my share by maybe 1 or 2. But right now I'm extremely underweight on him. The one guy that I did want to mention is Henry. So when Tyrod Taylor was in Buffalo from 2015 to 2017. Their leading receiver was Charles Clay.
Ooh.
He had the most targets on the team, the most yards on the team, the most touchdowns on the team. And this was a wide receiver core that wasn't all that bad. I mean, they had Kelvin Benjamin come onto the scene. Now he's pretty much forgotten about, but he had a very strong year in Buffalo. And he came onto the string very, very, very strong early on in his career. they had Robert Woods, they had other receivers, and it was always Charles Clay leading the way for the Buffalo Bills when Tyrod was there from 2015 to 2017. Hunter Henry is a guy that is extremely talented. We've kind of been waiting for a breakout. I don't know how many years he's been in the league, but typically tight ends do take a couple more years to develop and kind of have their breakout seasons, right? We're expecting big things from a guy like Hayden Hurst, who's been in there for a while. So why not throw in some Hunter Henry at $6,000 over on FanDuel? He's coming in extremely under-owned. There's guys that are going up to, Zack Ertz and the Mark Andrews of the world. And then, of course, if you go lower, you have two of our favorite targets in Jack Doyle. And we mentioned Mike Gesicki as well. And Hurst is probably going to be the chalk there. So Hunter Henry's kind of sitting there over in no man's land, but he could be a guy that ends up stealing a lot of targets over the middle. Both him and Keenan Allen are going to be relied upon heavily here for Tyrod Taylor. He's typically not a guy that likes to air it out. So I'm not expecting big things from Mike Williams. It's more so guys that end up running these short, efficient routes. Keenan Allen, that's his bread and butter. There's no need to explain that one. But Tyrod absolutely loves tight ends. So taking a look at Hunter Henry is definitely someone that I'm interested in. You touched on Joe Burrow and his love for slot wide receivers. We've been saying that for who knows how many months now. Justin Jefferson made his living at LSU, running the majority of his snaps over in the slot, going over for 100 targets. Going over for way more than 100 targets. He went over for 100 catches, 1,500 yards and 22 touchdowns. Him and Tyler Boyd should be looking to connect early on. The one thing that does worry me is this Chargers defense. Chris Harris is not necessarily the player that he used to be when he was in his prime with Denver when they went on their Super Bowl run and whatnot, but he's still a very strong and capable slot wide receiver. They still have Casey Hayward that's there, and of course their pass defense with Joey Bosa and Melvin Ingram rushing on both sides of that line is something that the rookie's going to be in tough for his debut. But again, strictly from a GPP standpoint, I do like the Joe Burrow to Tyler Boyd connection.
Let's go. Tyler Boyd. Next game. I agree with everything you said there. I think Hunter Henry's a nice under-the-radar tight end. Same reason I like Keenan Allen is probably the same reason you got to like Hunter Henry, except more red zone upside there. Tampa Bay, New Orleans. I took both quarterbacks out of my player pool. I hate to get Drew Brees out of there, but I respect Tampa Bay's defense. I know people think they suck. They don't. They're young. Those outside corners, Jamel Dean, they're going to be good. This is a season where I expect big things from Tampa Bay. The total's now down to 47.5. If you listen to the podcast on Wednesday, we were under 49.5 at this total, so we got the great closing line value there. It dropped 2 points. It looks like sharp money is coming in on the under. They think this is going to be more of a running game or just kind of a grind it out back and forth. I think it's going to be slower paced. I really don't want anybody in this game because especially with Evans in or out, is a decoy status. I know Godwin's a great play, always, but if Evans not healthy, I don't like Godwin. It's the same thing about, Tyler Boyd when he doesn't have help on the outside. I don't like Godwin nearly as much. I don't have a strong feeling there, so I do think Godwin's a really good play. Obviously, Michael Thomas is the best wide receiver on every slate, especially on DraftKings and PPR. I'm underweight on him just again because I think Devontae Adams is the smash spot, and that's where I want to jam my ownership. But I have nothing wrong with anybody that wants to play Michael Thomas, especially in cash. Like, it's probably the safest play you can get. Alvin Kamara, very popular. I know he tears up Tampa Bay, but dude just had an epidural, so the back's got to be killing him. I know he signed a huge contract, but I think we see a lot more Latavius Murray today than people are thinking, and I don't see the value there in Alvin Kamara, especially close to 20% ownership, but the dude could catch 6-7 balls and break the slate. So I'm scared to go underweight in this game. I'm just going to pray it's slow pace because I do not have a lot of exposure to it. I don't necessarily feel good about it, but I'm just going to want to watch this game. That's going to be my exposure. Hope it doesn't kill my wallet.
More so on the early games. These 4:00 games don't really have too much appeal for me. Even the Chargers game that we just spoke about. I mean, it's okay. And then we're going to touch on Arizona and San Fran in a little bit here. But Drew Brees at home in the Dome, I can't find myself to fade him altogether. I only have one lineup with him right now. I'm going to be honest about that one just because I don't want to have completely zero shares of one of the best quarterbacks of all time in his home dome going up against Tom Brady, right? So both of them end up being number one and number two in virtually all of all-time stat categories. So it's a battle of two veterans. If this matchup was 10 years ago, then you could pretty much stack this game outright with 3-4 players from each side and probably end up taking down a lot of money. But with week one on the cusp here, and both of these guys end up getting towards the tail end of their careers, I'm not expecting 400 plus passing yards for either one of these guys here. Tom Brady is still getting used to that offense, and he's learning a new playbook for the first time in who knows how many years, right? So Chris Godwin is a guy that I do have interest in. If Mike Evans does play, he's likely just trying to get Marshawn Lattimore off of Chris Godwin in that case. So Tom Brady has said that he absolutely loves this guy in training camp. He's gone out to say it, that he's expecting big things from him this season. So if there's one receiver that I want from Tampa, it's Chris Godwin. But again, I wouldn't pair him with Brady or anything like that. For those that are wondering, no, I'm not on Gronk today. I want to take the wait and see approach there because for all we know, he can not necessarily get all the snap count that everyone's hyping him up to be. They still have Cameron Brate and they still have OJ Howard that's there. They can run a couple 2 tight end sets. So I'm not expecting massive things from him, at least in week one. Over on the Saints side, it starts and ends with Michael Thomas for me. No one else that I really have too much interest in. If you want to make a nice stack with Brees, Kamara, and Michael Thomas, it was extremely popular last year, ended up working out a couple times, but in this matchup, all of them are pretty much towards the top of the pricing grid over on FanDuel for each of their respective positions. So kind of limits you. I much prefer a stack like what we had talked about with the Packers, where you end up saving $600-700 from Brees to Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Jones to Kamara is another $500-600, and of course Devontae Adams is another $1,000 there. So you can get just as good of a stack for a way cheaper price there, and possibly even a better game environment. So I'm not necessarily entirely off the Saints today. They are at home. They are a force to be reckoned with in their home dome. But again, not too much appeal for me in week one.
Yeah, it's just tough for me to get exposure to this game. I do want to play Godwin. I'm high on Devontae Adams. Gronk, I wouldn't be surprised if he scores 2 touchdowns, but let's just see a Gronk spike. Hopefully he's not crazy owned. It looks like his ownership's getting up there. That's about all I got for this game. Let's go to the last one. We'll make it quick, then a quick review of our top plays. The Sexy Six that we trademarked last year, but Arizona, San Francisco, honestly, I don't know what to think of this game. The weather thing scares me. Kittle's ownership's through the roof, and I think people are just expecting Arizona's defense to be what they were last year. So I'm off Kittle. That sounds scary, but I can't afford him again. I told you the guys I like, I can't afford these guys. I do love Raheem Mostert as a late night hammer. You know, you always want exposure to that 3 o'clock game because it seems like when you have great lineups at noon and it's over, you just start dropping down because there are other people's exposure elsewhere. But it looks like those games that should be the ownership killers that could potentially get you late are going to be the Chargers, Cincinnati, and then obviously Tampa Bay, New Orleans going to have a lot of ownership somewhere. I don't want to play Kenyon Drake, but his ownership's so low, so I'll have a little bit of him just because how explosive this run offense was towards the latter end of last year. That's about it. Kendrick Bourne. Decent value there. The model likes him. They got him projected for almost 11 DraftKings points. Trent Taylor, shout out Sia, I think is an okay punt play. He's 3,900. So I don't like him by any means, but if you need to bolster up, if you're using like McCaffrey and Josh Jacobs, Dalvin Cook, whatever the case may be, if you need a salary relief, I think Trent Taylor is my punt play this week, simply because every receiver for San Fran seems to be hurt. I'm not sure if Ayuk's going to play. It sounds like he's trending in that direction, but that's all I got. I'm not playing Kyler. I'm definitely not playing DeAndre Hopkins. I'm not playing anybody. I think if anybody has a big game for Arizona, it's Christian Kirk. I think he could beat this team downfield and really stretch the field. Hopkins isn't that type of guy, but it's scary to fade Kyler Murray. He's a running quarterback, but it's just not – I'm not interested in this game unless it's Mostert, but the weather scared me off him.
My main interest in this game is pretty much like what you had touched on. I mean, it's pretty much both running backs from each respective side there. Especially if Coleman is a no-go, Mostert's going to get all the work that he can handle. On the flip side, a guy like Kenyon Drake, because of his price combined with his ownership on FanDuel, it simply doesn't make sense to me. Having guys like Leonard Fournette and Mark Ingram being higher priced than Kenyon Drake, and even Lev Bell is in that price range with guys like Devin Singletary. So 6,600 for Kenyon Drake is definitely a good option, especially if you're trying to avoid that Boston Scott chalk like we are in your GPP tournaments. I'm not opposed to running some Kenyon Drake. Kyler Murray is someone that I have a limited amount of interest in, but my interest is peaked enough to make at least 1 or 2 lineups with him in GPPs. That San Fran defense is one of, if not the best units in the entire league. But again, we've played rushing quarterbacks in 2020. He went for over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns in 2 games versus them last year. And he ended up putting, I think it was 23 and 24 FanDuel points in both of those games. So when you're paying for a guy like Lamar Jackson, you ideally want, 25, 30 plus points from someone like that. If I can get 20 plus from a guy like Kyler Murray at $2,000 cheaper, at maybe who knows how much lower ownership, he's probably going to come in 1 to 3% owned over on FanDuel because of the quarterbacks that he's sandwiched between. I'm not opposed to making a mini stack with him and either Christian Kirk or Nuke, but I do prefer Christian Kirk. He's a guy that could get downfield and he's a little bit more explosive off the line than DeAndre Hopkins. DeAndre Hopkins is more of a contested catch kind of guy, like just lob it up to me and I'll find a way to come down with it, versus Christian Kirk can absolutely burn you off that line. So I do like Kyler and Kirk and for a very low owned stack, but nothing really else that interests me in this game. Over on the San Fran side, pretty much Mostert, and it ends there. I know a lot of people are talking about Kittle, and rightfully so. Arizona blows versus the tight end, but that was before they had Isaiah Simmons, and they did make some impressive additions to that defense. Budda Baker's still there, and Patrick Peterson is not Patrick Peterson that he was 10 years ago, but they still have some defensive guys that could definitely keep up. And if Isaiah Simmons ever wants to make an impression in his debut, no better challenge than to try and contain George Kittle. I wouldn't be surprised if he blocks a little bit more than people expect here. I know that Jimmy G has very limited options now with Debo out, and Ayuk might be injured, and even if he does play, he'll probably be a little bit hobbled. So I know a lot of people are expecting George Kittle to get, something absurd like 12 to 15 targets and stuff like that, but don't be surprised if they end up running the football a lot with Kittle blocking, and that could be a game theory where you end up going heavier on Mostert, exactly like what you said. The punt defense that I am playing, given the weather conditions of this game, I guess we could call it weather conditions, would be Arizona. Jimmy G blows. I'm not a Jimmy G fan whatsoever. Ooh. This guy, I'm not a Jimmy G truther. I do not like this guy. I never have. I never will. He has limited options. He already had limited options with Debo out there, and Debo often makes him look way better than he's supposed to. So taking a shot on Arizona defense would be strictly if that game is still having some air condition issues, and if you're playing the angle where it ends up being a lower scoring game and you think both teams are just gonna pound the football on the ground, then paying 3,300 for Arizona D is not exactly the worst option, depending on who you end up loading up your lineup with, especially if you're trying to come off a guy like Boston Scott or any of these other chalk value plays, Deshaun Jackson, Hayden Hurst, and stuff like that. Arizona D is near minimum price on FanDuel, so I'm not opposed to taking a shot on them. But again, be a little bit wary of that one. It can come back to bite you in the butt. But again, I'm not a Jimmy G guy. I think this offense is extremely limited outside of Raheem Mostert, and while I am expecting him to have an absolute monster of a game, I think this one's going to be really low scoring.
Yeah. I'm with you. Not a ton of interest there for me. Let's go through each position real quick. Top play, top GPP play, top punt. I'll start us off. Quarterback, top play, Russell Wilson for sure. Top GPP play for me, Aaron Rodgers. And then my punt, you all know it, Mitchell Trubisky. How about yourself, Ghost?
We're going quarterback first?
Yeah.
I'm going Lamar, top play, mid-range play. I'm riding with you, Aaron Rodgers, and then my punt play is going to be Mitch Trubisky.
All right, we're on the same page. Running back, top play for me, it's going to be Josh Jacobs. My top GPP is Dalvin Cook. I do like Aaron Jones a lot too there, but I can only pick 3. Top punt for sure right now, like I talked about the stock market. We got Walter Payton in the background here. RIP. But top punt for me is now Antonio Gibson. Sia just let us know Bryce Love inactive. I didn't know what to expect from Bryce Love, but as everybody goes to Boston Scott against a good run D and a very strong defensive line, and Philly has a terrible offensive line. Give me all the Gibson now. I'll eat that chalk, but the chalk's gone. So there you go. I'm buying low on Gibson now that everybody's off him for Boston Scott. That's my punt play.
Top running back on FanDuel, I'm gonna have to go with CMC. That one is a little bit more of a conversation to be had over there because my top GPP play is Dalvin Cook. As much as I love Josh Jacobs, I keep going back and forth. I have the exact same lineups with $500 left over. I end up plugging in Jacobs, then I end up switching it to Cook and vice versa. And I think I've switched it maybe 25 to 30 times. So I'll probably end up doing the same up until 12:59, and whatever one I end up getting in time is the guy that I'm going to end up having. But both of them are in smash spots. Honorable mention to Nick Chubb, who both of us are on as well for your GPP. And my punt running back is Tariq Cohen.
Okay. I like it. That's different, especially in GPPs. Wide receiver, top play. No surprise here. I am Devontae Adams all day, every day. Value or top GPP guy. You heard it first. Everybody's a fraud. DJ Moore. I love DJ Chark too, so they're kind of the same for me. The punt. Anthony Miller, I guess, for the Bears for sure. I like him a ton. I also like N'Keal Harry. The model loves him. I'm going to trust that he's healthy. I think that I said it yesterday. I think on the game by game breakdown we were doing, I think that this is he's just a better version of Kelvin Benjamin, and Cam Newton and Kelvin Benjamin had a couple really nice games. Same with Funchess. N'Keal Harry's kind of a combo of both. He's just much better. So I like N'Keal Harry. Anthony Miller's way safer, but those are my punts.
Top wide receiver for me, I am on the same page with you with Devontae Adams. Michael Thomas is definitely somebody that you could consider, but again, I just can't get there paying $8,800 without the full PPR. Definitely a better play on DraftKings, but on DraftKings they make it even harder when Devontae Adams is only $7,300 compared to $8,000 on FanDuel. So I will give the edge to Devontae Adams there as my top wide receiver. Top GPP play, I'm going with Allen Robinson. And my punt wide receiver, who do we have down here? I didn't go that low for wide receiver. I'm paying up for wide receiver most of the time. I'll go with Deshaun Jackson or Christian Kirk, depending on the air conditions of that game. But Deshaun, I'm willing to eat the Deshaun Jackson chalk this week. I think he does have a good game.
Yeah, I'm off him, but hopefully it doesn't kill me. Tight end. Top play for me, obviously, is Mark Andrews. I love Zack Ertz, too, if people aren't going to play him. My GPP tight end is Mike Gesicki. The punt is not even a punt, in my opinion. It's one of the safer play on the board is Jack Doyle.
Top tight end for me is Mark Andrews. I do think him and Lamar end up rebuilding what they had last season. I think he's going to have a big game. My GPP tight end will be Jack Doyle. And my punt will be, Hayden Hurst chalk is there, but I guess we could go Hayden Hurst. He's probably the cheapest that I would go on tight end. I don't understand the Chris Herndon hype train in week one, so
yeah,
I'll go with Hayden Hurst as my punt tight end.
All right, there you have it, folks. I don't think we really need to talk about defense. It's kind of, to me, it's always what fits in your build, and if you need to go down to Washington, I think it's a perfect day to do so. These min price on DraftKings. Probably pretty low on FanDuel. I know the Colts are really low on FanDuel. You could afford them everywhere. Go with them. That's it. It's lineup building time. Week 1, Christmas morning. It's here, Ghost. I appreciate you having me. Everybody who hopped in, we obviously greatly appreciate the support. N'Keal Harry is active by Matt WB. That guy's a legend. I know him.
Thank you.
And anytime, just reach out to us on Twitter, Discord, whatever you want to do. We're going to be building lineups for the next 40 minutes, so may not be as available as we need to be, but just at somebody at Discord and see us. I know he's always there answering questions. We got Stobies out there for sure. Antonio, I think's in there. Isaiah, everybody. We got a lot of guys in there ready to roll. It's going to be a fun week, and I pray Deshaun Jackson chalk doesn't kill me or Boston Scott because I'm off them in tournaments, but let's go. A-Rod season. Let's get it done.
Let's do it.
All right. Thanks, guys. Oh, and bro, yeah, we're going to end it. Now we're gone.